What is up, boys? Happy as
sir.
hell to see you guys for another episode of the Blind Pig podcast, courtesy of bgobsession.com. Real quick, if you're listening, hook us up with a like, share, follow, share us on all your socials. You can catch us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. On YouTube, you can follow along if you want to watch, and if you don't like to see these 4, 5, 6 ugly mugs, depending on what night you're watching, you can listen on all major audio platforms. So, guys, I'm going to go down, and Brother John is ghostwriting right now. He's paying attention, but I have to give him the call out. Got the predictions right there. I got to give him credit. We all look like idiots. John doesn't. Well, he said overtime winner. What we actually did was step on him a little bit. That was freaking nuts. Fellas, at this point, like we were talking about before we started recording, and Paul, brother, I love your analysis. So if you want to get analytical, feel free to do so. I am so emotionally just all over the place. I can't analyze a football game because I probably couldn't remember what happened 9 seconds before it happened in the midst of that. First time all three phases showed up. Complimentary football, as we all like to say. We forced turnovers. We got after Goff. Guys made opportune plays. And, I mean, there's a little guy that you know, catches a snap every time we're on offense that might have had a little something to do with it. But, gentlemen, where's your head at after that situation? 36 hours? Well,
I give
48 hours ago?
Mm-hmm.
Where's my head? You know what? I'm still pinching myself about once an hour, trying to figure out if I'm really awake. And it's not so much that I want to be clear. It's not that I didn't think this day would come. It's that I've been anticipating it since Harris took over, but I thought, I don't know. I watched what they assembled for a team this summer, and I thought, all right, we're on our way. We're doing some things. We'll have a decent season, and then we'll add some guys next year, and we'll have a decent season. And honestly, I saw us playing the role of the Dan Campbell Lions from 3 years ago when they went like 7-9 in his second year, and started to look like a real football team. That's what I thought. And then Saturday night, I watched them disassemble Dan Campbell's 2024 Lions, the team that, in all honesty, if you had held my feet to the fire 6 weeks ago and said, you have to put $1,000 on one team to win the Super Bowl, I would have put my $1,000 on the Lions 6 weeks ago. And
Bob, you gave me the perfect idea for an analogy with this.
What?
It's like you're a kid, and we woke up and it's Christmas morning, right? So you open your presents, and now we wait a week, and we know in our head we've got to wait until next December 25th to have Christmas again. And we go to bed one night, and we wake up, and it's Christmas again on February 1st. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Like, you think you got to wait all this period. You know what I mean? We're not going to, we've got to build. We've got to wait this amount of time. We've got to, and then, hello, NFC Championship appearance. How are you doing? I haven't seen you in 35 years.
But take that a step further. I can honestly say that we're getting Christmas like once a month, once a week at this point in time.
Yeah,
Every week something happens that makes us go, holy crap. And honestly, every week something happens, the rest of the NFL gets jealous. Dude, I want what's in his box. I want to have unwrapped his present. I mean, I'm living it down here in Dallas with Cowboys fans who can't even figure out, coach and they're all staring at me and anyway.
But the fact of the matter, Bob, is that we as fans have missed Christmas for the last 30 odd years or so.
Yes.
We deserve every single blessing that is coming our way as fans. And I ran across a quote this week. I actually posted it on our BGO Instagram account because it spoke volumes to me. and I'm reading it off my phone. I'm actually reading it off the BGO Instagram account right now. It says, "Faithless is he who says farewell when the road darkens." And our road has been pitch black for 30 some odd years right now.
Mhm.
And this is why we all stuck around, to feel like this, to have these emotions, to have these highs, and to ride this wave, and to have a team that we can be so, so proud of. And I would be fooling myself this evening if I didn't give some credit to you guys, because, when we first got this whole blind pig thing started a few years ago, I was one of those guys on the verge of saying enough is enough, because I had had enough of our previous owner and I was ready to walk away. And you guys helped me through that. And here we are now, staring at a possibility to go to the Super Bowl. What an amazing feeling.
Yeah, it feels great just riding the wave. And like Paul, like you were saying, like we were just stuck with nothing. And unlike other teams like the Jaguars or the Lions, whatever, who just suck and they just suck on the football field, there's nothing. Like we suck, but with like extra layers of all the Snyder things and every investigations.
We sucked on and off the field.
Yeah, we sucked to like the 10th power. So it just feels great. And I live in Northern Virginia, so like the next day we were out. Everyone's wearing their Commander's gear, saying hi, just getting pumped up. Just haven't felt that, so it's just a great feeling. And then another thing that's remarkable: we're the only team in all the playoffs to win a road game at all. And to have it come to Tampa Bay and then Detroit. Yeah, it's just a great feeling, and just so excited and happy for all us fans.
And we've won 2.
Yeah.
Wow.
Only 2 road wins.
So,
hey, Corey, we saw you sneak in, man.
Yeah. Hey, was there a game or something this weekend?
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, but we're not here to talk about
because
Philadelphia.
you have to remind us that this actually happened, right? Like we were talking about how just absolutely insane this was. We all, for the last 12 months, we've been thinking, all right, we got rid of Snyder. Now we got a coach. Now we got a GM. We can start building this thing, and we can start working toward an ultimate goal of being 60 minutes away from a Super Bowl appearance, right? And then we went to sleep and we woke up and it was Christmas again. Like it was, and it was like, what the hell happened? How did we find ourselves here? And I mean, I'm not trying to get analytical, but good Lord, man, this is different. This is new. This is something. Look, I don't know how spiritual you guys are, but can the Snyder cloud really be that thick that as soon as it is removed and the skies have cleared a little bit, that like we are now back to where normal teams are? You know what I mean?
Yes.
This is no. This is so far above where a normal team is, Derek. This is what, and I'm trying to remember. Maybe it was Rich Eisen last week. Somebody that I pay somewhat attention to from the national media said, Washington fans, you're in for a great ride for the next decade or more. I mean, that's the way it looks at the moment. He's like, look, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but that is certainly the way it looks, because you've got the most important piece to the puzzle in the NFL. And it looks like you've got multiple very important pieces when you start looking at the coaching staff and some of the other things that are there, right? He said, but enjoy this here right now, because no matter what Jaden Daniels does next year, no matter what he does 3 years from now, 4 years from now, it is never going to feel like this again, because this was unexpected. This is special. This is special in a way that is historic. He's rewriting the record books. I heard multiple guys today. In fact, it was Rich Eisen said again today. He said, I would go so far as to say that he's not having the greatest year a rookie quarterback has ever had in the NFL. He said, I think we are witnessing the greatest rookie season in the NFL, regardless of position. He said he's eclipsed Sayers, Brown, and what they did as rookies, and what any quarterback has ever done. He said this guy is just he's never, not once, looked like a rookie this season, ever. He said this doesn't happen. And he said people rewrite things in their head inadvertently. He said nobody does this intentionally. He said, but we think about the greatness that was Tom Brady, and everybody forgets about the fact that he sat on the bench for a year before he ever got into a football game. He was a second-year pro before he ever played a regular season down. He said people forget that Mahomes spent all but the last game of his rookie year riding the bench behind Alex Smith. He said we talk about all these great quarterbacks and how brilliant they were when they were young. He said really the only guy that came out of the chutes lion was Ben Roethlisberger. And he said even Roethlisberger had a number 1 ranked defense to fall back on. And he said what's Daniels got, a 15th, 16th middle of the pack defense? Can't stop the run?
I'm assuming you didn't see that graphic then, what they were talking about today.
I've seen the graphic, yeah, but I don't think Isaac had seen it at that point in time.
There's rookie quarterbacks, they list them, that have made it to the conference championship.
Every single one of them had a
I'll read it. I'll go from the bottom to the top. 99, Sean King, 3rd-ranked defense. 2004, Roethlisberger, 1st-ranked defense. 2008, Joe Flacco, 3rd-ranked defense. 2009, Mark Sanchez, 3rd-ranked defense. 2022, Brock Purdy, 1st-ranked defense. 2024, Jaden Daniels, 18th-ranked defense. We're not just talking about, to your point, Bob, we're this is just not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know what more fans need to see. I know that the fans that are wearing our colors, generally speaking, understand what we're witnessing here, that this is different, man. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people are getting on board with that, but this is the worst our roster is going to be right now with this guy under center.
Exactly.
All right, I got a question. Who's playing the position better that's left in the playoffs right now? Is anybody playing the position better?
No.
I mean, take your Homer hat off. Can you say that again? Right? You're just a football fan.
Well, so I think there's a little more that goes into it than that. But I mean, if you're talking right now, no. But listen, I love Jaden, but Patrick Mahomes has a couple of those silver shiny trophies.
I'm just talking about right now, this year, the 2024 postseason. Who's playing the position the best, Corey?
Oh, without a doubt.
If you say it's Mahomes, then that's fine. I'm just curious.
It's Jaden, but it's hard for me to allow myself to say, oh yeah, he's definitely playing better than Patrick Mahomes, so he's going to win the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. He's got Andy Reid, he's got Travis Kelce, he's got weapons, and he always, no matter how much people want the Chiefs to lose, he always answers the call. Now, I think we got one of those too. But we have to see him do it 2 more weeks to be able to elevate him to that level. And I think he automatically with 1. If he gets 1 this year, I think he's already on that level. But if he doesn't get 1, I think he's close. He's not on the level.
I was gonna say, I think he's on, and I'll make the argument that's a little homerist. I think he's on that level because he's doing it. He is a freshman in AP trigonometry, and he's the one setting the curve for the grade at the test. You know what I'm saying? Like, and this is just different. Like, and it would be irresponsible for me to sit here and act like this is the level of play we're going to see from him, because he's not just playing good for a rookie. He's playing top 5 for a quarterback. Okay. There's going to be ebbs and flows. He is going to have games that we get frustrated, and maybe not frustrated with him, but that he makes some mistakes or he has some bad decisions. It's going to happen because you know what? It happens to everybody. Every quarterback in the league has games that you get frustrated with. But the fact that he's doing it now, he's 20 games into his NFL career. and he's playing for an NFC championship game, and we're looking at it where he's the reason, not adequate enough to make sure he doesn't make a mistake and lose.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look, I love B-Rob. I love Austin Eckler. I love De'Ami Brown. I love all of them. You know, this is forever a historical season in my mind. I will never forget the 2024 Washington Commanders.
Oh, no, neither will I.
But if you took the roster from Kansas City or the roster from Philadelphia or, hell, the roster from Buffalo and swapped jerseys with them and let them play for 6 months with Jaden Daniels, I don't think the question about who MVP of the league is right now.
No.
I don't think there's a question about that anyways. I think it's two guys. I think it's Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels. And I think those are the two best quarterbacks all year long. I think for season-wise and all that, Lamar's great, but Lamar always in the playoffs comes up short, and he's got Derrick Henry to ride. Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels don't have much. Josh Allen's another one that's playing excellent. So, you know, look, I'm not trying to dog Jaden. I love Jaden. I've been praising him all year long. I've said he's been in the MVP consideration. I'm not dogging Jaden. I just think we have gotten to where we are, understanding that we have work to do to be in that upper echelon talent-wise. And I can't say that he's better than Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes yet, because he still needs to prove that. Having said that, I don't think he's far. I think he's there. He's on the precipice. I just can't responsibly say it, because then it's putting us in this kind of cocky spot. And I don't
Let me put it
cocky.
this way then, Corey. Would you agree with this? He is absolutely on the same level as far as talent and processing.
Yes.
But he needs to prove he's got the consistency to be involved in that conversation.
100%. I'm on board with that statement completely. And I think he's going to get there. We got to allow him still to be the young kid that he is, and let him grow into that. And let's see what happens. I mean, so far it looks like he's going to be it, and it could be this year. We could see it if we somehow have to send Ron Rivera a ring.
Hey,
Yeah.
to that point, you know, I just got to thinking, pretty sure all three of De'Ami Brown. Damn it. I was thinking all three of his holdovers scored touchdowns. And that's if you include B-Rob, Quan Martin, and Terry McLaurin. I guess De'Ami Brown was the only one that didn't. But how funny is that? That of the 7 guys that are retained, these are real contributors. And De'Ami Brown had a hell of a football game too.
I think no matter what, we should send Ron a ring, because if he wasn't as bad as he was, we wouldn't have been in position to draft Jaden Daniels.
Somebody on the board suggested we just send him an empty box, which would be even that much better. I'm just saying.
The real person we need to send a Super Bowl ring to is Greg Zuerlein. Let's not kid ourselves here.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Well, gentlemen. Oh my gosh. Defensively, that might have been the best defensive game. We still gave up 31, but the best defensive. Quan Martin, pick 6, touchdown, multiple turnovers. We were in Goff's face the entire game.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think San Ristel, unfortunately, the voting, you know, I would be willing to bet you that there's a lot of guys that vote on these awards that right this minute wish they had their vote back. And I don't mean just offensively, because San Ristel was amazing Saturday night. And the one name you didn't hear was Marshawn Lattimore, which means that Detroit pretty much went to the line and went, who's lined up over Marshawn? All right, he's out of this play. And tried to go pick on the rookie. And the rookie basically said, F you.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the football away. And did. Which is not to say that Detroit didn't get their yards. I mean, come on, man. They put up over 500 yards on us. That's honestly, that's a little concerning, except for the fact that they're one of the most prolific offenses since the greatest show on turf. I mean, that offense is genuinely scary. And Mikey didn't look out of, not only did Mikey not look out of place, Mikey didn't look like he cared. You know, all I've heard for 3 days is how stone cold Jaden Daniels is. Mikey Sanristel is every bit as stone cold as Jaden Daniels. We've got a hot rookie class, guys, that aren't rookies anymore. I should quit calling them that because none of them are playing like rookies. Yeah.
Look, I know everybody's been singing the defense's praises, but I'm going to go the other way a little. I love how our defense takes advantage of opportunities. And I think that's very different than past defenses that we've had. When there's an opportunity to make a play, they're there. And a lot of that has to do with Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu in the middle leading this team. And Jeremy Chin in the secondary, who I don't think gets anywhere near enough credit from people.
Fair.
But this defense is a sieve.
Mm-hmm.
They give up yards in giant chunks. And if Ben Johnson didn't decide to be the cute play caller, Jahmyr Gibbs might have run for 250 and buried us. So I do want to push back a little on the idea, not necessarily in the podcast, but where I've been seeing it everywhere. People have been saying, this defense is really good. And look, let's pump the brakes a little bit. We are a bend, but don't always break defense that will smash you in the face and make you pay for all your big plays. And we will create and take advantage of opportunities. But I don't think we're a good defense. And I think that's okay. When you have Jaden Daniels and you can move the ball and you're not afraid to go for it on fourth down, I don't think you need to be a great defense. You just need to play that fundamental football that coincides with the way your offense plays, right? And those two things have to marry each other, and they are. And then when we do have to punt, Tress Way has been real busy, one punt the last 2 weeks. When we do have to punt, that unit has to be on par. And they're all playing complementary football with each other. And that is why this team is good. And that's why the defense sometimes looks better than they actually are. And, credit where it's due. Quan Martin on that interception was not going to be denied. But Jared Goff just tossed the ball right to him. So, I'm not saying, oh, man, yeah, of course he should have made that play. No, because that run after it was amazing. It was incredible. But Goff was frazzled, and part of that has to do with our scheme and our blitzes and our front. He was frazzled, and he was making mistakes left and right, and our defense took advantage.
If you're going to give up yards, you at the very least need to be opportunistic. And plus six in the turnover department through 2 games in the playoffs is how you get it done. And this team just seems to be embracing that the ball is life mentality that they've been preaching from the beginning of the year, and it's starting to pay dividends right now, which is great to see.
Yeah, I saw some graphic. All the teams that won gave up more yards on defense, but they still won the game.
And
because of being opportunistic and like you were saying.
And the 3 teams who, Buffalo, Washington, and Philadelphia, those 3 teams combined plus 10 in turnover differential this past weekend. And that's the difference in games at this point in the year.
Yeah.
Well, let's not forget, we beat Philadelphia. How many turnovers did we give up when last time we beat Philadelphia?
5. We turned the ball over 5 times.
Yeah, and we still
So, I mean, this team's proven it can win without doing that too. So I don't know where the buck stops with this team. I have no idea, but
to your point, Corey, and it was that I about what I just said about Jaden. 18th ranked defense first points. We are not set on defense, okay? And I think that's the other part that I think we all can agree on. When we look at this team, we should not be winning with this defense, right? Like we're not looking at this like the defense is set. We're not looking, but the defense had the best game it's had all year yesterday, or day before yesterday. That's what I can tell you. Maybe they didn't hold them to the least amount of yards, but they were They created turnovers. They did what they needed to do. They were able to mitigate some drives. They were able to hold Detroit, a team that, and we might have given up more than what their average was. But the defense was good enough that the offense was able to have a 17-point lead with 7 minutes to go. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters, right? Yeah. So one thing, look, Marshawn, we're not going to have a shutdown defense in year one of a complete rebuild. So I hope fans understand that. Okay, guess what? Next weekend, when we play in Philly, our cornerbacks are going to be suspect again because we're not going to change anything between then and now. We haven't been able to change anything for 6 months or 6 weeks, sorry. So I think that's my bigger excitement is what we need out of this defense to truly be a force is what they gave us yesterday, even though we gave up 31 points. And it is pressuring the quarterback. It is forcing mistakes. And it is letting your offense score 45 points. Well, 38 points because you had to pick 6 for a touchdown. I don't think that can be overstated that even if Quan Martin doesn't intercept that ball and we hold them to a punt, we still beat them by 7.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that is where my excitement was with the defense yesterday. It wasn't how good they were. It was, to your point, how opportunistic they were and that they played one of their best games when it mattered. They created turnovers. And I am a bewildered fan. I still wasn't comfortable until Jeremy Chin intercepted that ball. And for no reason other than the fact that I just was waiting for Lucy to pull the football back. You know what I mean? And I was going to end up on my ass like Charlie Brown. But once Chin intercepted that ball, it was like, that's what we need. That's the icing. Victory formation basically at that point. And we're now the team waiting for people to figure out who's going to come to their house and play them in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, and then one thing that also stood out to me too was getting back to like what Witt talked about when he first came on in his first presser. Like in this game, everyone arrived violently to the ball. Like Lattimore only had like one target, but he was attacking on run support or if someone else caught a screen or whatever. But yeah, throughout the whole game, John Allen showed up. Like everybody was bringing the hit stick yesterday or Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, look, you don't have to be the most. I think this is what we're proving. You don't have to be the most talented and best unit in the NFL to find success. You have to work together as a team and make it happen. And our defense, for all its flaws, and it has a lot of them, flies around and hits people and plays together, and they don't get upset with one another, and they just go out there and play ball. And I think there's a lot to be said about the leadership from Jeremy Chin, Bobby Wagner, and Frankie Louvu, and potentially John Allen. But those guys are out there, and their whole goal is to just destroy other humans. Frankie Louvu took a big risk laying out Jared Goff, but Jared Goff got frequent flyer miles for that hit. He was in the air, and he landed landed about 8 yards behind where he got hit. That is a tone setter. That's a dog. That's the mentality that our defense plays with, and that's credit to our defensive coordinator who has made the most out of our lack of talent, and the players themselves, because they all believe and play together.
You know, I listening to some of the talk shows today, I think it was Rex Ryan said some people here need to wake up and realize that the best team doesn't always win in the playoffs, and that sometimes teams get hot and the 4th, 5th, 6th best team, the 6th seed, the 7th seed starts blowing people away. And he said, am I predicting a Washington win in the Super Bowl at this point? The answer is no. He said, but I'm here to tell you, it won't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if they went on, because they're just playing that kind of football. And as a team, they're in that space that sometimes teams get into. And I don't remember where I saw it. I think it was actually on a fan board. It may have been ours. Somebody said that this team reminds them of the 2 New York Giant teams that went on and won Super Bowls with Eli Manning. You know, the one that beat the undefeated New England Patriots. They weren't great football teams. They just got hot at the right moment, and they had an unstoppable quarterback. And we kind of have an unstoppable quarterback. I mean, that was one of the things. All right, Rich Eisen's rant today. If you haven't seen Rich Eisen's segment on Jaden Daniels today, you need to go find it. It's 20 minutes. It is 20 minutes, and it's a church service. I kid you not. And in the middle of it, he said, this is so totally different than any other rookie we've ever seen. He said, most of the time they give the ball to the rookie and they say, don't go out and screw this up. This team is turning to the rookie and saying, get us out of the situation we're in. Go win this football game. Not don't mess it up, but we trust you. Go do it. Like he's an 8-year pro.
And to that point, have you guys seen the pictures of the videos of him on the sidelines? There was an NFL, I think it was NFL Network, like Good Morning Football or something, was showing him. They showed him on the sideline against Philadelphia before we got the ball back. And he's just sitting there completely chill.
Yeah.
And then they showed him when we got the interception against Detroit. And he's just sitting there. He reaches and grabs his helmet, puts his helmet on, draws on. That dude, like, if you, he could beat a damn lie to test for test. I don't have an explanation. You know what I mean? Like, he is 1,000% in the moment. I think he is at peace with whatever happens because he is going to put into every little thing he does the correct amount of effort. He is comfortable that he's putting it all out there. He's given everything he can give. And if it goes his way, great. Even if it doesn't, there's no regret. I couldn't have done any different. And that's like, it's crazy to see how comfortable he is no matter what. A rookie goes into Detroit and does that. Like, that place was booming. And he was unfazed. It was just a football game. Mm-hmm. And as long as he can keep that, man, this kid, it's crazy as we jump around.
Thinking maybe he's kind of happy with the way this has worked out and he wants another shot at Philly in Philly?
Yeah, sure. Why wouldn't you? I mean, we already beat them once. They beat us too, but why not? Why not go? Why not go for that? We're 2 in a row. And again, as I've said every podcast I've been on, I think I've literally said this every podcast. Momentum is real.
Yes.
And while Philadelphia is winning, they're limping. They're not. It's they're winning because of their talent, but there's a lot of bad decisions, a lot of messed up things happening in each of their games, and we're just winning. We're like a steamroller coming through and running through everything. And they're kind of like, I hit a wall, I got to go around it. And then they get around it and they do their thing because, let's face it, they're a very, very good roster and a very good football team. But momentum is on our side. You know, Jalen Hurts somewhat banged up. I haven't heard his status, but man, if Kenny Pickett has to play against us, that's not great for Philadelphia. And I'll just leave it at that.
I went and checked their injury report today, and granted, I don't think they're required to like file an injury report today, but there were a bunch of like recent things that were up on team sites today, like Monday injury reports. Don't ask me why, but he wasn't on it. Quinion Mitchell was the only guy on it following this game, and he's questionable for this next weekend. Neither he nor Saquon, and of course Saquon, they worked on Saquon on the sideline a couple of times too. He's got a left hand wrist thing going on. If you noticed, he spent more time carrying the ball in his right than his left. Later in the game, it was like he did not want to carry the ball with his left. So yeah, this is going to be interesting to see what the injury situation looks like on their offense.
And they're going to play the rest.
And I was going to say too, I don't think the players cared who they got next. I saw a report. The media and the fans were all like, "Oh God, we got to go through Detroit," but their mentality was, "No, Detroit's got to go through us. They have to play us," and so they just carried that mentality down from that Dan Quinn set, and to whoever's next. So they're definitely not shook to play the Eagles again.
I'm personally kind of on the same wavelength as Bob. He was mentioning that he thinks that Jaden Daniels wants another opportunity at the Eagles. And this is something I wanted to bring up earlier in regards to this. When you think of Jaden Daniels this year, he has shown a ton of maturation and growth over the course of the season. Even game to game on a weekly basis, he seemingly always has a response, and he always has that "you can't keep me down" mentality. In his moments when he struggled this year, so for instance, you think of the first Dallas game at home, didn't play a great game. How does he respond? He comes back against Tennessee. He throws for 3 touchdowns. He runs for another one. He had the response. He did the same thing against Tampa Bay, his first ever start against the Bucs. That wasn't a great game. He put up pedestrian numbers, passing and whatnot. How does he respond in the playoffs? He just basically sideswipes them and runs circles around them. When you think of the 2 Eagles games, that first game that we played against Philadelphia in November, Daniels was a non-factor in the run game. They contained him. I think they held him to like under 20 yards rushing in that game. And even when you go to the second game, I mean, people are going to lament on the fact that, hey, he threw for 5 touchdowns. We had this great comeback in the second Eagles game. But I think that part of Jaden Daniels is thinking about the fact that in that game, there were 2 interceptions. I personally don't feel that in his mind, he thinks he has quite played his best yet against Philadelphia. And I think the guy is just chomping at the bit to unleash it on Sunday against them, because I don't think that Philadelphia has seen the best version of Jaden Daniels quite yet.
So to your point, we talk about guys that are different, right? Guys that they just play different. And the biggest thing is competitiveness, right? You hear about Jordan, okay, and I'm not putting him in the same GOAT status, but you hear about Jordan where there's an article about Jordan being a defensive liability. He goes out and he wins Defensive Player of the Year the next year. And that show there was a apparently in the middle of one of the finals appearances after game 2, somebody patted him on the butt and said 45 isn't 23 when he's talking about, because he was wearing number 45 at that point. What does he come out and do? He just sets records. Like that competitiveness that Kobe Bryant, Tom Brady, the elite of the elite have. So, Paul, I am curious, and I'm not obviously Jaden doesn't watch this podcast, so there's no pressure coming from me here. But I'm curious to see if, like, where is that competitive balance? You know what I mean? Like, does he take it up another step, knowing these guys took it to us in the first game? It was on a short week. Odds were against us. We were set up to fail in that game. Then we had to bring it down, and he probably can tell you every play he missed in that second game against the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
He has probably just scrutinized it and obsessed over it. So how much do we see? Well, not we, but how much is he invested over the next 5 days, looking at every coverage, every play, every defense, everything? I'm excited to see what kind of Jaden Daniels we see, because something tells me, to your point, Paul, he ain't forgot anything. He's gonna come ready for war. Well, fellas, do we want to talk any more about Philly? Do we even want to try to do an analysis? We've done it twice this year.
Before we talk about Philly, I want to throw one thing. I don't want to be that fan podcast or that fan by myself. I think the world, because Dan Campbell has been too classy to say it, they had 13 guys off that defense alone on injured reserve, including some absolute rock stars, right?
Give me Aiden Hutchinson any day of the week.
Aiden Hutchinson, yeah, I would take him on this football team in a heartbeat. He would elevate our defense all by himself in a way that I don't even think any of us can really project. And Detroit has been so classy about the fact that they have not relied on an excuse. I haven't heard a single Detroit player or coach say, we had a lot of injuries. Nobody's talking about it. And the reality is they had an entire starting 11 on their injured reserve. And we've had a relatively healthy season. And I feel for Detroit Lions fans. We've wandered in the desert for 30 years. They've wandered in the desert since inception. They were showing scenes of people sitting in the stands in the last 5 minutes with dejected looks on their faces. And my wife looked at me and goes, "Why do they keep showing them? That's just sad. That's mean. Those guys hurt." And I said, "Yeah, I know. I know."
I think the IR thing is actually a credit to them because they were still favored by 9.5 points, and they still only lost 2 games all year. They didn't, it didn't like decimate their whole season like say the 49ers. So I still, obviously, that's a factor. They were still a great team the whole year.
Yeah.
And I also think that when teams are growing and maturing and trying to reach the pinnacle, sometimes you have to take these lumps and sometimes you have to take these hard losses to grow from and to better yourself moving forward. And Detroit will be back. And I ultimately think that a loss like this to Washington propels Detroit to, higher mountains in years to come. Their time is near, and I think this is going to be a very good learning lesson for that franchise.
I said it in chat, and I stand by it. Get used to seeing the Lions, guys.
Yeah,
get used to this.
Yep.
We see them. We know we're going to see them this next year in the regular season. They got to come to our house this time. I would put pretty good money on having to see them again next year in the playoffs. And that's a fairly young team and a well-coached team. I expect to have to see them. I expect to have to get through Detroit in some way, shape, or form, or them to get through Washington in some way, shape, or form for a number of years to come. So,
yeah,
fans all over the DMV, fans of the Washington franchise everywhere, just get used to seeing Detroit because we're going to see them and hear about them. And that's one of those, I think it's a new rivalry. I think it's coming.
Well, one thing I will say, though, not to put a wet blanket on that, because I agree I think they're set up in a different way than they have been for a long time, but they are on the verge of losing both of their coordinators.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not sure losing Ben Johnson is a bad thing for them. Granted, right. Johnson has done some amazing things this year, and again, I said this on the boards and I stand by it. I think part of the reason we won this game is because Johnson gets too cutesy with things. He's got brilliant players. The trick plays are fun and they're entertaining and that's part of the game and it should be, but 1 or 2 a game, maybe. He's like 1 or 2 a quarter, a drive.
Yeah. So look, to go back to the feeling bad for the Lions fans, look, I do too. I've always had a soft place in my heart for the Lions. Not that I care about them as much as the Commanders, but I've always wanted to see them do well. And they've always been classy through all the nonsense that they've gone through in their history. They've always been a quality, classy organization. Never been, they've never been the Cowboys. But
right.
We've felt their pain many times. Now, yes, we have a better history, but we felt their pain many times. And I said it on the boards, but I'll say it here too. I think without those struggles, without those hard times, without those times that you're severely disappointed, you don't get the soul hug. We're getting a soul hug. This is, it's not just we're winning. Ooh, I feel good about it. It's, man, there's this deep meaning inside that you can't explain. Even if it ended tomorrow, that hug, that feeling, that memory of this team doesn't go away because of how special this has been. Now, like I said, I feel awful for Detroit, except for Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to tell you something. I think he deserves every bit of criticism that's been getting thrown his way. He gave, and I'm going to say something, but he gave the ball to probably the lowest football IQ player on his entire team and had him throw a pass in crunch time when they were losing a game. That is high egotistical behavior. That is relying on a crutch instead of your actual offense. And quite frankly, it's just a bad decision. Every time they showed Ben Johnson on the sideline, he looked nervous. He looked shook. I don't want that out of my head coach. Look, you can make mistakes with play calling. I get it. That can happen. If he had just made the mistakes, fine. But he looked frazzled. He looked like he didn't know what direction to turn. And now he immediately bolts for Chicago. You're going to tell me that wasn't in the works already? Come on.
Mm-hmm.
He bolted from Chicago. He bolted to Chicago immediately, a division rival, a day and a half after they got eliminated. So I'm going to tell you something. I don't feel bad at all for Ben Johnson. This team full of basketball people just kicked your ass.
Exactly.
The rest of the Lions and everybody else in Detroit, yes, I have nothing but respect for them. I think they're going to be a problem for us, Bob. To your point, I think they're going to beat us in the future in the playoffs. I do. They're not far off, and they have a great program. And Dan Campbell is phenomenal. So they'll be back, but thank God it won't be with Ben Johnson.
I look at the Lions, and all I can think is they get those 13 guys back on the defensive side of the football, go through another round of draft and free agency. I don't know what happens with the coaches. I really don't. And that has a huge impact, as everybody here knows, right? But this time next year, they're still a more talented football team than we are. I mean, I have all the faith in Adam Peters in the world, but there's only so much you can do in one off season. Maybe I shouldn't say that because we turned over 60% of the roster last year. I guess we can turn over 60% of the roster again. But I just look at it and I'm like, I don't see a way in a realistic NFL world that we are on par talent-wise with the Detroit Lions at this time next year. They just have too many weapons on both sides of the ball. They've been put together in a brilliant fashion. And so I expect to have to see them again next year late in the season. Maybe twice late in the season because we don't have a schedule yet. Shit, we could play them at Christmas and then turn around and play them in the middle of January. Wouldn't that be fun?
No.
Actually, it would.
And the other thing that can't be overstated, they did it with Jared Goff. Say what you will about Goff, he was a first round, but he is not what you would predetermine as an elite quarterback. He is cut from the same cloth as Sam Darnold. You know what I mean? The right circumstance and situation, he can be effective and he can be talented. But he is not going to be the kind of guy that takes over a game for you. Jahmyr Gibbs took over games for them. Okay, Sam Laporta. And
more than one
2,000-yard receiver is a great offensive line.
St. Brown took over games.
Everything ideal around him.
So if you insert a premium quarterback into that situation, then you're talking about a very dangerous team beyond their coordinators. You know what I mean? At that point, I could call plays. If they're good enough, you can win football games. I hate to say that. It's not about the X's and O's. It's about the Jimmies and Joes. And I think that there's a balance. And Corey, you being from the football background, you probably can attest to this better. But you understand. I imagine that if you think about it as a slider, if you've got primo talent, your coaching doesn't have to be as responsible for the ability. You know what I mean? And vice versa. If you're deficient on talent, but you've got super premium coaching, you can make up for deficiencies. So you put a major talent in at quarterback in that team could be very dangerous very quickly and beyond what we thought we saw this year. And the offensive coordinator, I think Ben Johnson's a little overrated, but that's just me. So Well, fellas, I think we can break down the game coming up on Sunday by saying if you can limit Saquon Barkley and he can punch Jalen Hurts in the mouth, I think we got a pretty good shot at it. I don't know what else you guys think we need to get into. And Jalen Carter, can somebody just sit on him or something? Like, grab his ankles and just trip him because that dude's a menace.
I'll
He
tell
is
you
a
something.
menace. Go ahead, Paul.
No, I'm probably going to change the topic to go in a bit of a different direction. So you go.
I was just going to say, not only is Jalen Carter a menace, but we lost Cosme to an ACL tear, so he's going to be playing against Trent Scott, who filled in admirably and has filled in admirably at multiple positions this year. But still, we're talking about the sixth man up, not quite possibly our best offensive lineman. And Carter. Well, I see Corey grimacing a little bit. All right, second best behind Biotic. But even so, now you've got what, number 1 and number 2 right there working on Jalen Carter, and still we struggle to contain the man. And now we're going to give up one of the 2 studs off the line and replace him with Trent Scott, which is not to say Trent's bad. I haven't seen enough to know, but the coaches think Cosme's better, which has to have Jalen Carter licking his chops just a little bit. So anyway, Paul, you were going to change the subject. Go for it.
No, not totally, because I think it's a nice little segue. Because my major concern is obviously Jalen Carter as well, and the status of our interior offensive line. And I think that one of the things that is critical for us this weekend is being able to get something out of our run game. We saw Brian Robinson have a little bit of an emergence last week, a little bit of a breakthrough, and we need more of that. I went back and I looked at the 2 Philadelphia games that we played this season. I'm going to rhyme off a few numbers that I took my calculator out and did a little bit of math with. Brian Robinson in 2 Philadelphia games this year. In November, he has 10 carries for 24 yards. In the December game, he has 16 carries for 63. He averaged 3.3 yards per carry this year against the Eagles. Jeremy McNichols averaged 1.6 yards per carry against Philadelphia this year. Rodriguez, 1.7 yards per carry average against the Eagles this year. Eckler had 7 total yards rushing against the Eagles. Granted, he only played in the first game. Combined, not including Jaden Daniels, if you factor him out of the equation, in 2 games against Philadelphia, we had 107 rushing yards on 36 carries, which amounted to 2.9 yards per carry on the ground. We need to fix this. We need to do something to be able to get, 3-4 yards on first down. We need to be able to stay in those second and third and manageable situations, because that's where Daniels in this offense seems to excel, and that's where we're allowed and able to keep the entire playbook open. I think that's going to be a hugely critical factor for us this weekend. I can't overstate the importance of it.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, bud.
Yeah, so I think that I agree, except I don't think you can fix it. I think it's something where they are much more talented than we are. So while I think you're right, I think if we could find a way to control the ball by running it, I think that would be a big key, Paul. I'm not trying to say your point's not good, because it is. I think you're absolutely right. I just don't think you can fix it that fast. And Trent Scott, for what he's a big body that can kind of get in the way of guys. He's not a road grader. That's where Cosme is definitely a stronger asset to us. So I'm looking at it the other way. I think the key is Oz, Jamison Crowder, and De'Ami Brown getting themselves touches, converting, not dropping passes, and allowing us to use the short-range passing game to get some yak to kind of open some things up. And then I think, Paul, that does help the run game, and I think that helps us kind of go in that direction, at least a little bit better than 2.9 yards per carry, by the way. Thank you for doing that math. And I think there are ways you can kind of go around it, but I think it all has to go through the passing game, because we are not going to displace that front. They are better than us up front, and I don't even think it's close. So we have to find ways to manufacture offense around that.
To that point, Corey, I think it's gonna be it should be a similar game plan against Tampa Bay with Vita Vea in the middle, where those quick screen there was a lot going to our running backs in that game, and it was in the pass game, but it was quick passes outside, get those guys moving sideline to sideline, and I think that's going to be the way we have to attack it. I could see us playing this game, to your point, that we have 21 carries by running backs for 82 yards, and everybody looks at that and says, ew, what a terrible average carry. But then again, you look at B-Rob, you look at Eckler, you look at some of the more stuff around the line of scrimmage where you're getting those guys involved as an extension of that run game, where it's basically, instead of it being a pitch from behind, it's a pitch 8 yards to the side and let them get outside and try to create something. Because against Detroit, we ran the ball almost borderline at will. If you look at the numbers, I think we had 185 yards rushing or something. You know what I mean? Like, we hadn't done that in 2 months, but I think we kind of knew that they were susceptible to giving up the run. But we're not going to be able to play that same game against Philly. That interior D-line is going to work. And we're going to have to be quick. We're going to have to make decisions, be decisive. But this is kind of what we do, right? We adapt and overcome.
So
yeah, might see more tempo. And then also this whole season, we've seen us win in a variety of ways. Some days we run better. Some days we have the short passing game. Close games, blowouts. Like we kind of adapt and figure it out, and the team finds a way.
So 2 things. First, I think there's value in the running game, even if we're only getting 2.5 yards a carry. And the value is that they have to pay attention to it. It also, the fact that we give the ball to the run, and when I say running game, think running backs, not necessarily Jaden Daniels, because the value there is they have to pay attention to the running back if we keep handing off, which makes the RPO options for Daniels better as a general rule of thumb. They have to respect Daniels, but they also have to respect the running back, because Robinson will pop one for 25 yards if you're not careful. Eckler may be longer than that if you're not careful. So you have to pay attention. You have to respect them. The second thing is Nakobe Dean is now on IR for the Eagles. He was their second leading tackler. I would argue that their front is incredibly dangerous, but they're much more dangerous as pass rushers than they are run stoppers. The run stoppers on that defense are Dean and Braun, because the front is just swallowing your offensive line, so they can't get to the second level and block the linebackers. That frees the linebackers up to make a play at or near the line of scrimmage. While Dean is now going to be on crutches sitting on the sideline, right? He's 148 tackles they had this year. I didn't go back and look at our 2 games. I just looked at the year overall. That's a big loss in the middle of their defense. I don't even know who's taking his place. But I can tell you that Kyron Williams this week, without Dean in the lineup, ran 19 times for 105 yards in the snow, lousy conditions, against the same front 4. So that tells me that, either the Rams have a significantly better rushing attack than we do, which is possible. It's also possible that the Eagles defense is not quite as stout against the run without Dean. So there you go. My 2 thoughts.
Well, we can run those thoughts right into some predictions. So what do you guys feel? Paul, I wrote your name down first.
Of course you did.
Curious to see what it's look. I'll give it to you right there. I'm curious to see where's your head at, brother. What's going to happen Sunday at 3:00 in the NFC Championship game?
All right, I put a lot of thought into this today. I think this game is going to come down to three things, that being the following: the third and fourth down conversion battle, playing clean football and generating turnovers, and time of possession. To me, if Brian Robinson shows a little bit of what he flashed against the Lions, I think that goes a long way towards helping us win that time of possession battle. I think he's got some confidence reestablished. I think he's hungry to put forth a great game after that nightmare he experienced against the Eagles in December with his fumbles. Again, our running game doesn't need to be miracle workers, but we just have to be efficient and keep their defense honest with it. Defensively, I think that our team is finding a little bit of swagger. We're playing with a really confident mentality right now. I think the availability of John Allen can't be overstated. It gives us a little bit more hope in terms of containing Barkley. We didn't have him the two times we played him this year. I think his presence is going to give us a little bit more flexibility in terms of some of the looks and designs that we can show up front. I know that sometimes we've liked to use that 3 defensive tackle alignment along the line, and that can, hopefully go a long way towards containing Barkley a bit. Offensively, I think that Hurts' mobility is going to be limited this week with his knee. I think that that's pretty big. Honestly, I think you have to invest all your energy defensively into stopping Barkley and forcing Jalen Hurts to beat you. Mikey Sainer still is growing in confidence by the day. I think that Lattimore is just starting to settle in at the right point in the season. I don't think we can overstate the fact that he is now going to be starting in his 3rd consecutive game. I feel like things are just starting to trend in the right direction for this team right now in general. Momentum's real, and that can sometimes be an unstoppable train. On top of that, I think we have the confidence as a team, knowing that we've beat Philly once and lost in a 1-possession game the other time this season. And in both of those games, we were far from perfect. They were not great performances, and we hung right there with them. I know I'm getting a little bit off on a tangent here, but this is still part of my prediction. On a side note, last May, I lost my dad. The passionate Washington-crazed fan that you see here today is a product of basically what I witnessed as a kid growing up when he would cheer on his beloved Toronto Maple Leafs. Yes, I'm from Canada, and hockey is everything here. I know that he's somehow playing a small part in the magic of this season. He's always known how much I care about this team and what it's meant to me. And I know he's always secretly cheered on for them from the background so he can see me smile and be happy. With Jaden Daniels behind center and my dad pulling some sort of strings somehow from afar, I think that that's an unstoppable force. Let's get it done, my friends. I normally don't do this, but Washington 27, Philadelphia 26, I believe.
27-26, so we said?
Yeah.
All right, Bob, you're up, brother.
Thanks, Derek. Make me follow.
Hey, way to follow that one.
Yeah,
Go ahead, buddy.
Thanks for making me follow that. No offense, Paul, but damn. So, fun stat: Jaden Daniels has more playoff wins in his professional career than he does negative plays in the playoffs. He has no fumbles, no interceptions, and 1 sack. And 2 playoff wins. I find that amazing. I'm not sure you can find that with almost any other quarterback currently playing in the playoffs this year, if you just look at this year's numbers. This team, oddly enough, is playing incredibly loose and yet has tightened up all the loose ends in the last 2 weeks. I've always hated the phrase team of destiny. I seriously, and I think that probably goes back to the Super Bowl loss to Oakland when we were a foregone conclusion. We'd won the year before, and Riggins was just running over everybody, and the defense was playing lights out. And I think that was one of those years that we pulverized Detroit on the way. And it just, I've hated the phrase, but it feels like there's something here that's not quite of this world. I don't know. I feel like we go into Philadelphia and we break some hearts. And while I was
as long as they're not our hearts, brother.
I was gonna say, well, while I feel for fans in Detroit, for the record, there will be no feeling for fans in Philadelphia. I will not regret anything if we come out of there with a win. And I think we're going to come out of there with a win. I think it's supposed to be fairly decent weather for this time of year. I think it's going to be a fairly big game again. I think Washington 33, Philadelphia 28.
All right, I'm next. I'll take it. Bob, I can't argue anything. If you've been a local fan, and I'm sure, Tony, you can appreciate this. In the last 5 years, we have experienced 2 championships, one of which by the Capitals, one by the Nationals. In both of those circumstances, we weren't supposed to be there. The Nationals, when we won the World Series, was 19-51, if my memory serves me correctly. There was actually real conversation about whether or not we were going to fire our manager. There was a hell of a run, and we got hot, and we ran through some of the best baseball in Major League Baseball. The Capitals, countless President's Cup trophies, multiple times that we are the best team in hockey, and when we ran it to the Stanley Cup, we had the absolute hardest road to bear, including in the Stanley Cup Finals. No home team won. We were 0-3. We were 0-3 at home and 4-0 on the road to win the Stanley Cup, including exercising our demons against the Pittsburgh Penguins. I say all that to say this kind of feels similar. But the realist in me understands that this is not normal. What we're experiencing is not normal. We shouldn't be here. So I will stay true by saying if I am betting, I'm picking against us today. But I do have to agree with you, Bob. There is something different in John and Paul. There is something truly different about this team. And I am loving the hell out of every bit of this ride. Unfortunately, I think that Philly's too much for us right now. Saquon's got a hell of a, he's an MVP candidate as a running back. He's doing things. He sat out the final game of the year when he could have run for a little over 100 and set the single season rushing record. That's not something to be forgotten. So I think ultimately, unfortunately, Philly probably gets the best of us on Sunday, just because I believe rationally that's what happens. Spiritually, I think we have every chance to win this game. Final score is going to be 31-26 Philly. Tony, what you got, brother?
All right. So normally, when a team is on a 5-game streak going into the playoffs, all the talking heads are like, "Oh, this team's hot. No one wants to play them." For some reason, that wasn't a major talking point for us. But we're definitely that team. We just beat 2 division winners at home. I mean, on the road, they're home. Both those teams are capable of dropping 40 points easily, have high octane offenses. And for me, last week I did predict the Lions to win, and then later in the week, I don't know if you guys saw it. There was a mic'd up of Wagner that came out. Yeah, Coach. There's a mic'd up of Wagner that came out.
That sounded like a prediction to me, Tony.
Yeah, and yeah, basically. And when I saw that, I was like, we're fucking going to win. There's just something about this team. They're just together. They're all rallied behind 5. There's just something about it. So that's when I felt like we're definitely we're just going to find a way to beat Detroit. And this week, I think similar, but we also have the confidence of knowing that we did beat them. We beat them. We beat Jalen Carter. Our offense, even with 5 turnovers, still put up points on them. So I think this week we do find a way. We got it out. And also the Eagles were fortunate to beat the Rams even this past weekend. I think we find a way. It's 31-24. We take the win, and AJ Brown can go read his fucking pop-up book on the sideline and do what they want to do.
Brother Corey, bring us home, K-Dog.
So the football deity is pleased that we got rid of the poison gas cloud that is Daniel Snyder. And it has been an all-season thing, a Hail Mary, a last-second win against New Orleans, the dismantling of the Lions. It has happened time and time again. We have been chosen to be special. Now, how special still remains to be seen, but there is something somewhere that has allowed this team to do what it's done. And we have Jaden Daniels and they don't. We win 38-33.
Whoa.
Yes, sir.
All right, boys. I hope I don't follow suit with John last week, where I was the only one that picked Philly. But fellas, I love you guys. I say this every podcast. This is truly different. Sharing this experience with you guys, and Paul, to your point, Bob, look, Tony, Corey, you guys are more recent additions, but we've been doing this podcast for 4 years. All right, when we first started this podcast, it was mid-COVID. And we were, to be fair, I think a lot of us were just looking for a reason to get on a video chat and just talk football with our boys. You know what I mean? This was the whole premise behind this podcast was 5 guys at a bar drinking around a table talking football. There's no real script. There's no schedule. We're just having fun. And we've added people, Brother John, Mark, Chris. You know, this podcast has seen a lot of people. And to be where we're at right now, I don't think any of us could have even envisioned it 4 years ago when we started this, that we would be on the eve of the NFC Championship game, breaking down if our star quarterback has enough juice in him to lead us to a Super Bowl appearance. And we aren't even in our new stadium yet. Like, we all thought this was years down the road. So, gentlemen, I appreciate all of you guys, and I hope you guys know, and I hope you guys share with me how appreciative it is and how shocking it is that we've gotten ourselves here, because I wouldn't trade this for anything when it comes to being a fan of this team. Like, I didn't expect it to be this fast, but damn if this isn't a hell of a ride, man. Fellas, as always, I'll sign things off the way that we always do every week. And I will just end it and say, that'll do, pigs. That'll do.